Okay, I'm going to try and use this stand to show you how to make SDS PAGE gels. So I've gotten everything out ahead of time. What you're going to need is you're going to need the case that sets the gels, these green seats that the glass plates sit within when the gel's hardening. Depending on the type of gel you want, you're going to need a glass back plate and a glass front plate. Pay close attention to the measurement at the top. That determines the comb that you're going to use. So this one, might be hard to see, says 1 millimeter. It means I'm going to use the 15 lane comb with 1 millimeter written on it as well. So what I need to do today is I need to make 3 gels, which is a little bit much for most experiments. Usually you make 1 to 2. So I have the equipment out to make 3. What I do first is just inspect the glass plates, make sure there's no debris on them, especially on the inside, because that can make your gel run funny. So having the glass plate on front, the back plate in the back, I kind of gently line them up. I hold them at the sides with my fingers, tap the base, and then you're going to insert it into the green seating. Make sure these feet are on the bottom, and you just kind of slide it in carefully. Once it's in there, just kind of tap the table with the glass to even out the bottom, and then you close these side doors to get it held together. Once it's all assembled, I like to take my thumb and run it against the bottom just to make sure it doesn't feel super offset, because you're going to have leaks if they are offset. So I'll do that with my other 2. Alright, so this is how the gel will assemble. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to bring it into the overall holder. These have latches at the top that apply pressure downwards. So you're going to take your assembly with the feet angled slightly and just slot it in. And then you push the back here that allows it in, and I push down a little bit to make sure there's a good seal. Next, you're going to want to test the seal because these are a little worn down. They tend to leak. And you want to catch that before you put any chemicals in there. So I have a water bottle. I'm just going to set the tip of the water bottle in the crevice and inject about 1.5 inches worth of water. What you're going to look for, it takes about 30 seconds if you're going to have a bad leak, but you look at the base and you see if water droplets form. You can rotate back and forth because the water droplet will run left to right. So what I'm seeing is that this one looks okay, this one has a slight leak, this one has a bad leak, which is likely due to the quality of the sealant rubber. So I'm going to leave these 2 as they are. This one I'm going to undo, take a paper towel, soak up the water, and then I'm just going to reset it. I'm also going to take my wet paper towel and rub down the rubber a little bit. Sometimes previous gels can leave behind hard fragments of gel, and that can interfere with your seal. I'm going to test again. Alright, so while that one sets, I'm going to start, or sits rather, not sets. I'm going to start assembling my gel mixture. So what I have are 2 empty Falcon tubes. These are 15 ml tubes. Typically you'd use these snap cap tubes, but since I'm making 3 gels, I need a little bit extra volume space, so I'm going to use these twist caps. From the 4-degree fridge, I've gotten 3 reagents, 30% acrylamide, 10% APS, and T-Net in this brown bottle. from my own chemical stock, I've gotten 12% resolving buffer, a solution of butanol, and 5% stacking buffer. Just gonna test real quick to make sure this looks all right. So, the way SDS PAGE gels typically assembled is you have a resolving layer on the bottom and a stacking layer on top. And the stacking layer allows all the proteins to basically get on an even footing before they get to the resolving layer where they separate based on their size. So our resolving will be 12%. We make this first because it's on the bottom. Then we make the 5%. This is a formula for a master mix for 3 gels that I've written out. So I'm going to start by adding 9 milliliters of my 12% buffer to one of these twist caps. If you're just starting, I recommend using pipettes so you can get an even measurement. But if you're comfortable pouring after a little bit of experience, do that. The acrylamide, 30% acrylamide, is a toxin, so you want to be very careful working with this. I especially recommend using a pipette with this if you're just starting. So the solution right now won't start to harden. It doesn't have the polymerizing reagents, which are our APS and Actina. So I'm going to remove the water from my gels just by pouring it in the sink real quick. And then I like to hold it upside down and use a paper towel to get that little bit of water out. This way our dilution chemistry in our mixtures is correct. So these are ready to have gel mixture put into them. So I'm going to start adding the polymerizing reagents. So far we've added 9 mils of the buffer, 6 mils of the acrylamide. Next we're going to start the actual reaction by adding 150 microliters of the 10% ammonium persulfate, or APS. And then finally, we're going to add 15 microliters of the T-Med. Now, T-Med has an awful smell to it, so you want to work quickly when the bottle is open. Okay. So, all my reagents are in there. Now I just need to mix them up. So I just gently rock back and forth 15, 20 times to get a good mixture. You don't want to shake it because there's detergent in there, which will cause a lot of bubbles. And you don't want to have a lot of bubbles when your gel is set. So just enough to get a good mixture. So now I'm going to start pouring it. Depending on your comfort level, you can use a pipette or just pour from this stage. I prefer to pour it. So I'm going to set the lip of my flask on the edge of the glass. And I'm going to fill up maybe 2 or 3 inches. You want to go slowly so it doesn't pour it all out. So a good rule is to leave about a finger's width between the green back bar and the top of your gel. This way you have enough room for the resolving layer and your combs later on. And if you have a particular leaky gel, you can go up a little bit because it's going to leak through as it settles. So this one was leaking, so I went up a little bit higher. So we need to add one more chemical. which is the butanol for this stage. Now what the butanol does is it doesn't mix well with water. So we're going to take 200 microliters of our butanol and just inject it drop by drop going down the crevice between the front and the back plate of our gel. And what this does is it's making a thin layer of our butanol on top of our resolving layer. This makes a nice flat surface, evens it out, and it also will remove any bubbles that are sitting on the surface of the resolving layer. I'm going to pick up all those tips that I'm missing from there. So, this is the end of stage 1. So we're going to let this sit for about 20-25 minutes to settle, harden, and then we'll come back and we'll do our resolving layer. Okay, so it's been about, honestly, about like 40 minutes. It took me a little bit longer to do something, but you only need about 20 minutes for the gels to settle. But they can sit out an hour or so, no problem, in between the stages. So you can see this is the excess from before. There's a nice hard gel layer in there. Kind of serves as an egg timer to see how much more of your gel, or how much longer your gel needs to set. One thing I did that I wasn't able to show on camera was I took these over to the sink and ran them under tap water to remove the butanol. That's very important. You need to remove the butanol before you add your resolving layer. Your stacking layer. So what I did was I just ran them under the sink, I don't know, like 20-30 seconds, and then I took a DI squirt bottle and just flushed it out 5 or 6 times. You can't overwash it, and it's very important that you get the butanol out. So now we just have a solid resolving layer in there. Hopefully this shows up all right. So next, we're going to prepare the stacking layer. Now the stacking layer, you can see this all right, is going to be for 3 gels, 6 milliliters of a 5% buffer, about 1,300 microliters of acrylamide, 75 microliters of APS, 7.5 microliters of TMED. The acrylamide, the APS, and the TMED are all the same reagents we use to make the resolving layer. The only real difference now is we're using a different pre-prepared buffer that's set to make the stacking layer. The 12% and the 5% buffer we make in-house. They're composed of water, tris buffer, which serves to manage the pH, and then SDS detergent. The exact measurements you'll have to read the bottles for, or you can ask me anytime. This is more just like a general how to make the gel. So let's get ready and start preparing the stacking layer. So I'm going to use the other conical tube that I got out earlier, and I'm going to start by measuring out 6 milliliters of the 5% buffer. Okay. To that, I'm going to add the acrylamide, which was 1,350 microliters, 1,350. Again, the acrylamide is a toxin, so you want to be cautious when you're working with it. Remove your gloves and wash your hands when you're done making gels. That goes for DNA gels too, because of the ethidium bromide. So next I'm going to add the ammonium persulfate, 75 microliters. And then finally, I'm going to add the TMED, 7.5 microliters. For the APS and the TMED, make sure you inject directly into the solution since they're small volumes. You don't want to rely on like the droplet falling from the pipette tip because they can get stuck to the side or not come out properly. It's better to submerge the pipette tip and inject directly into the solution. This way you know what's in there. And again, I'm just going to gently rock back and forth, try not to produce too many bubbles. It looks like I have a few. That's probably from when I fired the acrylonite in. That'll be all right. Okay, so next, just like before, you can use a pipette to... So apparently my phone ran out of space on the last video, figures. So I'm actually coming back after I've added the stacking layer and the comb and it hardened and everything. So I'll just give you a little brief overview of what I talked about in those last few minutes. So I left off by pouring the stacking layer into the gap and then I bring it all the way up to the rim, basically fill the remaining space. Then you'll take your green comb, so this gel should be done. Now the combs have two faces to them. They have a face that has writing and a flat face. Make sure the face that has writing is facing you when you set it into the stacking layer, when it's setting. When you're setting the comb inside, it's very important that you go slowly because you're displacing buffer that's within there. And if you go too fast, I hope you can see this, it shoots out. And you don't want to shoot that all over your workspace or yourself. So just slowly insert the comb, and then when you're done, take a paper towel and just mop up whatever excess came out of the well. You don't want to leave excess buffer on here because it'll harden and it makes a problem for the next time you're going to use it. So these gels are done, but I don't plan to use them today. I'm actually going to use them tomorrow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to store them for another day. So I'm going to start by releasing the doors on our green piece, carefully taking it out. It's not, I don't particularly like to hold it up like this because the gel can start to slide. I like to kind of hold it flat. Now to store it, what I'm going to do is just take a paper towel, a clean one, and wrap it up. Make sure you fully encase it. And then take some DI water and just squirt it down so that the whole paper towel is damp. That's the whole point of this, is that you want to keep the gel damp. Because if it dries out, it's no longer usable. So I'm going to do this for all three gels, but just to show you what I would do is, now that I've done this, I would take some tin foil and wrap it in tin foil. And then you can store this in a 4-degree fridge for like 3 to 4 days, I'd say. After four days, I'd consider making new gels. I wouldn't be super confident in them, but I'm just going to use mine tomorrow, so it'll be fine. And basically all you need to know for making SDS page shells.